You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel, and as you can see, unfortunately, I'm on my own. I don't know. I think that maybe Daryl might be having some technical issues. Not really sure what's going to happen, what was happening, but I mean, like, we already delayed this broadcast enough, so I didn't want to delay it any further. So that's right. We're here. We're discussing Season 2, Episode 6 of Visions, called The Spy Dancer. Now, this is a really, this is a really interesting episode. I know a lot of the fun is, what did Daryl think of it or whatever, and I'm sure if he solves whatever technical glitches or issues he's got, maybe we can go ahead and get his thoughts on it really quick. But this one was actually, I thought, I don't think I liked it as much as the last episode, but I have to say that this really was another emotional episode. This one really tugged at the heartstrings a little bit. It was very different. It basically sort of did almost a reverse of the whole Vader Luke thing, which I thought was actually really cool, right? Because in this thing, the mother, who was basically a rebel spy, pretty much gave birth to a son, the Empire took him, and then years later, she finds out he's actually a high-ranking Imperial. So I thought that was pretty intense. There was all kinds of things that, I thought that this episode actually had that, honestly, like I said, I mean, the animation I thought was pretty cool, but that's something that I've been saying for a long time about these episodes. That with Vision Season 2, you just have really stunning animation. I thought the animation was really good for Vision Season 1, but for some reason, Season 2 just seems to be hitting the mark with the animation. So I thought the animation was just absolutely brilliant. By the way, Daryl did assure me that he's good. He's coming on any minute now. So I'll just go ahead and maybe give a little bit of more introduction, give him a little bit more time to sign on. I mean, hey, it's live TV, everybody. This is essentially what happens. But let me just respond to him really quick. And hopefully he pops on pretty soon. Because as you guys know, part of the fun is to find out, well, did he like it or not? So, I mean, overall, I would say that, yeah, I thought this episode was good. It was a little strange, though. And I'll tell you what it reminded me of a lot. I'm going to bring this up when Daryl pops on. Oh, and there he is. Now I can bring him up now. Hey, you with me?
Hey.
All right. So of course, I was just introing this whole thing. And, giving a little bit of a vibe on it. But, part of the fun is, what was your overall thoughts on this thing? Did you like it?
Nope.
At first I was saying that it wasn't my favorite. But I did actually think that it was emotional. I thought the whole reverse of the Vader Luke thing was pretty cool. I thought that was interesting. And it kind of reminded me of the opera scene from Episode 3 in a lot of ways, with that performance.
Yeah.
The
whole theater opera thing,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I thought that the battle was actually pretty cool. It was different, but at the same time, I could see where, you might just go, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't care. I really didn't care that much about it, honestly. The whole, I get like the spy dancer thing. I mean, it's like, okay, they're kind of trying to feed information to the Republic or whatever. Well, not the Republic, but
the rebellion. Yeah, because this is a lot of Imperials go to this particular thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, yeah, it's just like, okay, it kind of gave me a Resistance kind of vibe, Star Wars Resistance, type of um, approach. I guess if that's the right word I want to use for it. But yeah, I really wasn't too impressed with this one at all.
Well, the studio, I'm probably gonna end up butchering these guys' names.
It's like,
Studio La Cachette or something, and
yeah.
it's they're a French studio, obviously.
Yeah, because that was another, and I kind of figured that because they came in with already with speaking in a French tongue. Like, when did Star Wars go? Like, that was the first thing that instantly kind of took me out of it. It was just like, okay, when did we end up in Paris or whatever? It's like, all right, this is already at least and they kept it basic. You don't know exactly where people are from, but this is clearly defined. Like, oh, okay, this is has a very high French influence.
Well, and I can see why, because in a lot of cases, and I know that this happened, and I'm pretty sure with the French it might have been the same thing. I'd have to actually go back and look, embarrassingly enough. But during World War II, you had a lot of entertainment troops that were actually spies. And I think that was one of the things actually that made it interesting, because it was a different take on the whole rebellion versus Imperials kind of a thing. I mean, to me, it actually was a little bit more grounded. You had a particular theater that the Imperials pretty much frequented, and it was more like a nightclub, right? A nightclub with
Yeah.
like this whole Cirque du Soleil thing going, and it was basically about how, because this was frequented by a lot of Imperials, people would actually visit it, and it's perfect for the whole spy thing. And I thought it was really interesting too how the mother basically was going down and she starts chucking all those little trackers and stuff on them during the dance number. And it just was one of those things where, I don't know, I thought it was actually cool. Ronaldo, I don't know if he's still around, because remember, we were supposed to go on at 8, but we were just incredibly delayed. Ronaldo basically says, for all the fans of Man of Steel, happy Superman Day. I did not realize it was Superman Day today, so I had to I had to get that out there.
Cares about Clark.
But it was actually a pretty stunning visual episode, and I thought a lot of the fight sequences that they did were really interesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, like when you talk about the whole tracker thing, going back to that, it wasn't believable just because you got them on their leg, you got them like,
well, yeah,
they're glowing all over these people. It just seemed kind of cheesy to me. Like, you're just chucking these things every which way and no one's noticing. It's like, okay, whatever. I could see if they did like one, like, okay, she like saw some Imperials at the table. I mean, the story, the context of it was all right. Like, okay, that one Imperial who I guess like took her child or something like that, when she was like, okay, like, that's who she saw, and then
and then that just instantly changed everything, and she fell and she had to sort of cover it up, like,
yeah, it kind of gave me that Batman and Robin vibe.
Yep.
When Robin
and then she had those like little knives thing. I know, and I mean that was really, see, those are the reasons why I ended up liking it, was because it was an interesting episode. The story was something that actually, for something that is supposed to concentrate on war, I'm really surprised that Star Wars never ventured into this territory before. Although, I will say that I can't remember the mother's name, like Loie or something like that. I mean, I don't know, I'm really bad with these vision names.
Well, yeah, it's not like we have to live with these characters and we're seeing them all the time and hear their name is episode by episode. So sometimes I'm trying to remember what they are, it's kind of difficult, but
right. But I mean, the thing that I thought was the dynamic between her and that other rebel that she was, that older guy that she was reporting to and everything, was very much, and wait for it, because David popped on. It's kind of an Andor-like thing between.
I was going to say that. I was
Mon
definitely
Mothma
going to say
what's his face?
Uh,
Oh man, I can't remember. I forgot this guy's name too. Well, you know what I'm
we watch too
talking
many.
about.
Yes, it's so many Star Wars shows that
Yeah, I
we have,
know.
to try to keep in our head.
I
But yeah, no,
know.
I was definitely about to say that it does remind you a lot of like a episode or something like that. Like you could see this in Andor.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of that whole espionage, kind of trying to infiltrate certain areas and trying to get information out of people. But overall, though, I mean, I just think it was kind of a all right episode.
Well, we
It
got
didn't
some.
really.
Yeah. Well, here's a
We
couple.
got
So
some
one.
chatter.
Well, David says, "Hello, gentlemen. I'm glad you all are live. It's not the same without you. Watching the show is better than date night on Sunday night." I would agree. I'll tell you what. Sometimes doing the show is better than date night on Sunday night, but not for this next guy. So next we have Chad. He says, "Is Daryl in a new room?" Yes,
Yes, I am, sir.
he is in a new room.
Chad. It's the
And
Chad.
and when I finally get my whole little basement studio done, he'll be in another new room.
And
So
another one.
yeah, just get used
Like
to
a
look.
DJ Khaled song. And another one.
Hey, we try to move around in order to confuse everybody and
Yes. It's
keep
a show game.
keep the show spontaneous. Keep the show spontaneous. But yeah, I think that it just I don't know. Again, I can understand maybe why on the surface people might look at this and go, all right, it's okay. But this is another one of those, and the Andor comparison I think actually applies even here too, is that if you look at a lot of what's going on and focus a little bit more on that part of the story, I think it's actually a really good thing. Like, for instance, like you said, she sees the guy attending the performance who actually took her child away from her. Well, actually, or was he yeah, that's what it was. Oh man,
That's
I'm
who she
blanking
thought he
out.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's who she thought he was, but it was actually her kid, right?
Yeah. It was like basically she fell. Well, as she was chucking trackers all over the place, she sees this Imperial in the shadows, and it's very reminiscent of the guy who took her child from her.
Right.
That's what causes her to slip, and then the daughter jumps down like Robin from Batman and Robin, and excuse me, eventually ends up saving her.
Yeah, and then eventually, sees that it's her kid. And the other cool thing too was when she gives him that little, what was that, like a locket or something that had his baby picture in it or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's just a lot of really powerful imagery. Unlike usual, that's why my details are a little fuzzy. I made the mistake of watching this thing like 3 days ago or whatever. And
Yeah.
to make matters worse, I started watching all this other Star Wars stuff. So it's like my head's all jumbled with all these different things. But the good thing about Visions is that a lot of times, we don't generally deal in super hyper specifics with it because we like to talk about the themes and the overall tone of the show rather than get into a lot of specifics. Because the problem with getting into a lot of the specifics with Visions is that it's just, I don't know, it's all over the place. A lot of it is more thematic than, I guess, specific as far as what it's trying to convey. And so I think in a way what the studio was trying to do was take that Luke and Vader thing and sort of reverse it. And just give us this really cool, interesting story that often happens when you, during wartime, right? A lot of times, like I said, you got entertainment troops, things like that end up being spies. Well, what happens if you have that in the Star Wars universe? And I think that that's one of the things that if they start exploring more grounded type of storylines like this, I think it could actually expand Star Wars in a unique and meaningful way.
Yeah, it kind of had the whole Captain America Indiana Jones kind of vibe to it in along with Star Wars, of course, in a way, because like you said, just the whole entertainment troops, whole situation where it's like, okay, everybody kind of finds this usual watering hole or some place that everybody tends to congregate for relaxing entertainment, and then it's like, okay, well, this is where people are gathered to kind of relax. Everybody kind of has their guard down, so there's a better chance of infiltrating certain things because people aren't so on their posts, shall we say, like in
Right.
the place like this.
Well, and I think too, another thing you have to look at when you're looking at this particular episode is you have a lot of parallels. Now, I keep mentioning the Luke and Vader thing, but you
Hmm.
also have in the expanded universe, you basically have the Jason Solo Leia thing where he eventually turns to the dark side. He becomes a Sith Lord, Darth Caedus or something like that.
Hmm.
So then, of course, the sequel trilogy just took that a step further because they borrowed from that. Jason Solo essentially is the inspiration for Kylo Ren.
Kylo,
And
right?
you have that where Kylo goes a step further and actually kills his father. So
Hmm.
again, this whole parent-child dynamic that you do see sometimes in Star Wars, I think this is really, again, it's one of the more heartbreaking storylines of any of the episodes that we've seen so far. And then, of course, in addition to that, and this is one of the things that I thought was a really interesting thing to do, because you think it's going one way, right? Okay, she succumbs to vengeance, and you think what's going to happen is, okay, I'm going to get revenge on this guy that took my child away from me and, all this other stuff, which is something that they do explore in a lot of these shows, films, books, comics, pretty much all the
Hmm.
medium. But what was interesting was if she had gone through with it, she would have ended up killing her own kid. Like the very kid that she was trying to almost avenge.
Revenge, yeah.
Yeah, she would have ended up killing him because he was
And
the Imperial. And I thought that was just a great thing.
yeah, I mean, that was a creative storytelling plot. It was a good. It wasn't your typical um turn, if you will, like something that you necessarily would always see coming. Like there's some turns where you could see them, like, okay,
Yes.
I kind of could see that coming, but this one was a little bit like, oh man, and then you kind of thinking to yourself, like you said, like if she would have went through with it, like she would have been the one to have killed her own child, and out of vengeance for something that's not even, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just so
Like
messed up. I mean,
there's a
to be honest, I basically, I audibly gasped when it was revealed that it was
okay.
her kid. Yeah, because I did not see that coming. David says, I really like this episode, and I finally like the animation, Eric. Nice. It actually reminds me of a lot of the older school. It actually reminded me of something specific, but I can't remember. But it's definitely like a lot of the older school anime stuff, too. I'm not surprised
Hmm.
Daryl doesn't recognize good taste. The mom was a beast. The action was fast and furious good. I got to say this. I'll just take this time right now. I saw Fast 10 last night.
Hmm.
And yes, of course, it was full of the same completely unrealistic, over the top action. Perhaps
Mm.
more so in some ways. However, it actually was like really good. I think I still like 7 and 5 and 1 and 2 a little bit better, but I mean it's up there because one of the things that it does is it's actually more of a direct sequel to Fast 5, and it brings in a lot of other elements from the other movies. So I think that
So let me guess. They souped up some chargers that they can drive really fast on the ocean floor this time.
no. Actually, the
I mean, you
story
got Aquaman in
itself,
here. I mean, I'm just
the
figuring,
the story
we've already been to
itself.
space.
Well, he's a little over the top as a character, but he basically plays the son of the drug dealer from 5.
Mhm.
And the way that they weave it, I mean, honestly, the story itself is way more grounded. Way more grounded. Probably the most grounded of any storyline since then. Now, of course, there's a lot of things to where you're just like, okay. But and they don't tie it up either. They leave a lot of loose ends. So I don't know if they're gonna answer questions in like another spin-off. Are they gonna do a trilogy? It's weird. David said Fast 10 doesn't count. Did you see it?
Oh yeah, he saw it.
I mean, it was like I said, I was actually pleasantly surprised because I expected more of the Mission Impossible type of stuff. Um, but no, it was good. So I mean, again, this is not like some Oscar-worthy type of a thing. It is a Fast and Furious movie. Let's put it that way. But more so than the last couple, I think it actually had a more grounded story. But I bring a lot of this up because I see Star Wars, particularly in animation, being able to do something similar because you can actually have, say, something, either it's a concept, character arc, basically a storyline, whatever. You can have it start in either one of the films or one of the Disney Plus shows, and then perhaps you can use animation, whether you want to go the traditional route or perhaps in like a Vision Season 3, for instance, and
Please God, no.
explore more of these things. I do wonder, and I'm sure we're going to actually talk about this more as we're winding down the Visions season.
Mm.
Because you do have to wonder if they're going to do a season 3. I mean, you and I were talking about season 2, like, I don't know, man. And what's amazing is, I'm guessing that Vision's season 1 must have been popular enough or they wouldn't have done a season 2.
Well, you know what? Going back to you, because you made some good points about the grounded piece.
I did, didn't I?
Do you think? Because I think there is. It seems to be, at least there's a. It seems like there's a cry or a call out for more grounded um films and series now. Like I think a lot of people are kind of, we've talked about a little bit, worn of the superhero
Yeah.
supernatural stuff. Like,
Oh,
okay, we kind
absolutely.
of, and I think now people are kind of clamoring for something a little bit more like grounded, and I think that's why people fell so much in love with Andor. I think so many people are preferring certain series that aren't so um over the top, but it's more like, okay, if it's action, let it be more grounded, not so fast and furious like, or
Well, I'll give you another
things like that.
example. Because you're talking about comic book fatigue, right? And how
Well,
people want like
a little bit of that, but I mean, even though, like, I mean, yeah, that's definitely real. But I mean, like, even just like, people prefer like things that, like, okay, like Game of Thrones. Like Game of Thrones was very action heavy, but it had, like, people care more so like about the story and, like, okay, how these people are maneuvering. They care about like the drama aspect of it. Like, all right, man, like, okay, I can't wait till next week. You know how it was, like, tune in next week to see, like, even with Batman, like I said, the 60s Batman, right? Tune in next week to see how Batman and Robin get out of, and it creates that tension, that drama. And I think people are starting to get more into things that are a little bit more grounded and realistic, and things that people can chat and talk about, as opposed to like, okay, let's see this great, amazing CG work that's done for some superhero like power.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example would be the Joker movie.
Right, exactly.
Because see, now that was basically a comic book film, but done in a very non-comic. It was basically like the DC version of Taxi Driver or something. It was kind of like, yeah, like a Martin Scorsese film.
Hmm.
It was very grounded, very drama heavy. Some might argue that it went too far the other way, but it was a huge selling film, though. It just shows you that, yeah, people don't necessarily need to see all this CGI action, buildings, explode. I mean, because again, it's kind of like what happened with the later Transformer movies. I didn't see the latest one yet, but like the original Transformers trilogy that they had, by the third one, it was just like, okay, my head's hurting because there's just so much happening and it's just so over the top. Let me get this comment from David in here. He says, I like the robot a lot. They drew him very well. Yeah, very ominous. I agree. I'm glad you brought that up because I did not actually think about that. The way the daughter ripped him in half was sweet. The story was great. Great writing. Yeah, I mean, I agree with it a lot. And I think that this is one of those very typical anime style things. So if you're an anime fan, I think that you're going to be right on board with this episode. I think you're going to think it's great. Not an anime fan, or maybe casual, it depends. And I think, again, it almost goes back to our Andor argument. It really depends on what you're looking for. Because we've often talked about that, look, Andor's not for... I was going to say it's not for everyone, but it's really more like it's not for every Star Wars fan. Because I actually think that Andor would appeal to a lot more non-Star Wars fans than anything else. But
and
if you are a Star Wars fan, yeah.
Because it's not, you take it away the Force, the lightsabers and everything like that. Everything seems a little bit more of a grounded, based in reality, like, okay, this could actually happen type situation.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely. And that's the kind of so I mean, really, the criticism is going to come from Star Wars fans, because those are going to be the ones that are like, I don't know, I was expecting whatever, because they're going to be the ones that come in with some expectation that's going to either lean maybe a little bit more towards force wielding characters and stuff like that, or maybe it's just a different kind of a war thing, maybe something a little bit more action heavy. This is almost like the Thinking Man Star Wars series. And in a lot of ways, I think some of the Visions episodes are the same way. I think that you run into a situation where maybe certain episodes, because again, like the last 2 or 3, both of us agreed that, oh yes, this is good. Now, we might have had slightly different, I might have rated some higher or whatever, but both of us agreed that we liked it. They're on the right track. This episode, though, I think it's a little bit more of that Thinking Man's, you got to really look beyond the imagery and all that to really get to the deeper meaning. And it's also presented a little bit more like anime, like what we think of when we think of Japanese anime. And that doesn't necessarily appeal to everybody 100% either.
So what would you rate this episode if you...
Oh, that's I was trying to actually think about that, even because, that question inevitably comes up whenever we do these reviews. And it's a little bit difficult because I love the writing. I love the storyline. I even loved most of the presentation. Because, again, another thing that I'll say real quick is that, once again, this felt like it actually takes place in the Star Wars universe. That was one of my biggest criticisms of Season 1. Is that, I mean, unless you throw some weird-looking TIE fighter or some odd thing in there, you wouldn't even know that they were in the Star Wars universe. They could have just been more sci-fi oriented things, They'll throw terms in, or you'll see like an astromech droid or something weird, and then you're like, oh yeah, is this Star Wars? This season, on the other hand, most of the episodes feel very much like they're a part of the Star Wars universe. But that said, again, it wasn't my favorite of this season, so I don't know, I'll go like... with the story and the president,
struggling a little bit there, man.
Yeah, because 7. I'm gonna give it a 7.
Okay, I was gonna give it like a 7.5. So I'm right there with you.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, again, it was good. And I could see where it might not necessarily appeal to everybody, but and Ronaldo's not here. He was here earlier, but unfortunately, since we got started later, I think he probably had to bail or whatever. But it's too bad because we don't get our preview of the next episode from him, and if he thinks it will like it. So specifically, Ronaldo, if you get a chance to watch this episode again, definitely leave your comment in the comments section about what you think. David actually gives it a 10, which is pretty cool. It's nice, David. It's nice to see that you're liking something. This is a good thing. And then, of course, for Daryl, it's probably like, of course, it would be Visions.
Right. Well, it is David, so you have to take that with a grain of salt.
That's right.
Well, I know he and I, because ever since we brought up the fact that we're contemplating an idea that one of our other viewers, Chad, who pops in from time to time, as you saw, he wants us to do a movie / series review type show, not Star Wars related, which is of all things. And David has tried to make it his mission to be on our show as part of his master membership. He wants to debate us on various films, namely probably the Fast and the Furious and the Batman. They're definitely, there's a high on his list, and of course he's gunning for me, which I mean, I don't know why.
Might be able to make that happen. I mean, that show will probably end up being on another channel.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is head-to-head of Star Wars podcast. But we're not going to look for, we're reviewing Cobra Kai or something. It would be kind of weird. So it'll probably be over on the Eric Vancel Media channel. But, yeah, I mean, hey, he's a master level supporter. If he wants to apply that to that show, we could probably let that go.
Yeah.
But yeah, for everybody else who isn't Ronaldo or David, definitely
see what you get when you actually sign up for stuff.
Yeah,
see what
see
happens?
that? You get called out. That might be a good thing or a bad thing to people, though. They might not want to. But hey, that Buy Me a Coffee link that's in the description. I mean, you can give one-time donations. You can give, a couple bucks or whatever. It doesn't matter. Anything helps. That's part of the thing. If we could do this more full-time, it would be amazing, but we can't. Hence why sometimes we have to go on late or pre-record episodes. It just feels good to be live again, actually, for once.
Yeah.
I mean, the pre-recorded thing is cool, but I like being live and being able to interact with everybody and everything. So if you guys like this, definitely subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button if you haven't already done so, if you're liking this video. And then, of course, leave your comment in the comment section. Let us know what you thought of this episode, Visions Episode 6, The Spy Dancer, Season 2. And while you're there, let us know what you guys are thinking of Season 2 so far. We still have technically 3 more episodes.
Mm-hmm.
You're coming to the home stretch.
Thank the Lord.
All right. Oh, well, I gotta put this comment up.
Well, what did David say now?
And here we go. Well, actually, there's a couple. So, first he says, I'll school Daryl on any show. Oh, man, them's fighting words. But this is my favorite.
Of grandeur.
It would be an honor to formally meet the great Eric. Watch, he says that now, right? He gets on the show, we're going at it like, no, that's not what he's thinking at all. Just
look,
like
David, you're already black. You don't need the brown nose, okay?
All right. Well, that should get some tweets going. Hey, at least you said it.
Right.
See, you're allowed. I say that it's
Yes. Yep. Now
then the tweets come out. Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Cancel head-to-head.
Yep.
Podcast.
Like Don Lemon's over there, like calling from my head or something. At least not on CNN though.
Right.
But all right. So hopefully you guys join us Friday. Did we talk about what we were going to do Friday yet? I ask this every show. I know.
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, there's a lot out there. There's a lot that's going on. I mean, I've been keeping up with all this news, and it's been pretty crazy. David laughed at it. He said, "Daryl gonna get y'all canceled." Yeah, I know. Well, I don't know.
Hey,
More people would have to watch us, I think, for that to happen.
I'm part of the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right. Well, we'll see you guys Friday at 8. Hopefully.
Right.
Oh, no. Actually, no. We got to pre-record this Friday. That's right. We actually have to pre-record this Friday. Because I got to...
You hear that, David? We're going to pre-record.
Yeah, we're going to pre-record for Friday. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I won't be able to chat in still, though, at our normal time. It just depends on what's going on. And Daryl, of course, you're always welcome to be online, too, and, chat while we're doing it. Next Monday, though, we'll be doing episode 7 of Visions. That should be live. So usually every Monday and every Friday at 8, it's usually pretty consistent. Sometimes you hit bumps in the road, but this Friday, just watch for a pre-recorded episode. And that's pretty much it for this show. All right, so with that, I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the force be with you, always.